God damn it, Jeff. Name one thing that you've done that says you're trying to figure out the puzzle pieces.
I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make.
Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with, now they looking nervously. And I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy. Hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe. I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet next to me.
I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way.
Coming out with a statement. You really changed, man, all your music and arrangement. You don't know shit, shut your mouth, you can save it. I'm the same dude that got his come up from the basement. 100 songs, 100 weeks, didn't change it. Experiments, development, intelligence, and patience. I'll do it all again, cause I never feel complacent. Let's keep the good vibes, positivity's contagious. I'm never looking back, cause I made a life that's passionate. A college graduate suppressing all his talents, yeah. He found a way to go and change, become an advocate. For taking control of your life, go out and battle. And you think you have a dream, then act on it, get after it. Get out your head and fucking capture it. You got one life to master it. Don't give up on your future, we all start losers. We're all late bloomers, gotta struggle through the sewer.
What you say? Yeah, I'ma do shit my way.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
And here we go.
Welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
What is going on, Hive? I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. I'm pumped for tonight. I don't know about you guys. I feel like there is more momentum in the Idaho 4 case than we've ever had. And I'm going to be diving into why I believe that is. But the main topic of this evening is I'm going to be talking about this cleanup. Specifically, how I believe that it was done. And I got to give a shout out to Pavarotti again. I said last night, like, I'm not just trying to like glaze this dude. He's very good at investigating, but I'm going to play a clip, and it really does show the importance of collaborating, right? And so, like I said, buckle up for tonight, because I think it's going to blow some people's minds on how easy this could have been. And then also just the progression of, oh my God, this just happened. How do we clean it up? Right? Now, if this is your first time tuning in, I'm your host, Birdie. I just got these new Meta glasses, and I'm like, I'm going to try these out. I actually just accidentally turned them on. Hey, Meta, record. And then this thing lights up right now. So now I'm recording you guys. Maybe I'll post this clip. This is kind of funny. You guys can see the setup that I got. But anyways, this is a Contrarian Thinking live stream. I go live weeknights at 7 p.m. Central. We think past the headlines, question the narrative. And really, if you are somebody that likes to question everything and you're not just somebody that listens to the news and parrots it, and you're like, well, why are they saying that? That doesn't add up. You have found your people. You are amongst friends. And I'm going to go ahead, actually. I'm going to take those off. I feel like with the hat and the headset and the glasses, it was a little bit much. But anyways, I'm going to say what's up to everybody. I have a Discord question of the day. I actually have a Hive pet of the day, or a Hive pet of the stream, that I'm going to highlight, which I think is awesome. And then we're going to be getting into it. So first things first, let me say what's up to everybody. Luna Bliss, shout out to one of my mods. UFO Dog is in here. I just saw her name fly by. Tinfoil Hat Claire. Sarah. Scout. Monique, formerly known as Beck. How are you doing? And we got Philly Girl, Marsha May, Turquoise, Karen, Aaron, Karen and Aaron, Crow and Rainbow, Wonders Deep, Daily Twin Flame, Deanne, Melissa says, Birdie can see us now too. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was, what do they call that when you see it from an ad and you're like, you know what? I'm going to buy them. What do they call that? What kind of buy is that? I forget the marketing term, but that's what happened. It worked on me. Mandy's, Grace, Scout, Jules down under. Crime era. Oh, Crime Rat. Damn it. Oh, whatever. That's funny. Kay Christie, Sarah, formerly known as Beck. We got Disable Me, Discord Dawn, good to see you. Mitchell. Assman 1259. Beth. IB2U. Hell's Silence. Mary Lou Teach Out. Gabby Girl. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. Yeah, like you're right, Disable Me. It was like as seen on TV. An impulse buy. Yes. Bondage Barbie. Shauna, Philly Special. Thumper Rabbit Hole. Jess, Spacey. John's tuning in from Scotland. Kitty K Lime, or Kitty Climb. Lisa. Sweet PB. Ocean's Blue. Ninjas Like Cereal. Jennifer. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. That's right. Big Mike Bam says, Birdie's been watching infomercials at 2 a.m. You're not wrong. Sometimes after I get done streaming, and I'm editing and I'm going through all the comments, your guys' comments, they send me down a rabbit hole, which is awesome. It's awesome, but my sleep has definitely taken a hit from it. Sherlock, great to see you. Chrissy 2.2, Jennifer, UK Cheese Farmers side piece. Again, one of my favorite usernames. Let's see. Southern Bluebell, Deborah, Coco Cash, Wendy Wells, 2068. Fireball 267 says, Roll Tide, War Eagle, True Crime Princess, good to see you. Lovely Me. Pinchalicious. Birdie, have you ever said what line of work you're in? I have said it, but if we have some newer people tuning in, I'm always curious. What do you guys think I do for my day job? Mrs. Birdie's tuning in. Delilah, Gramilla, Mitch Callahan. But wait, there's more. Ooh, sweet PB. Thank you for the super chat to start this stream. And honestly, just a great question. You guys can answer this too in the Hive. As a reminder, any super chat that's over $4.99 will pop up right here, and I will do my best to address it immediately, as long as I'm not like in the middle of kind of the flow of the stream. So if you do send a super chat, I'm going to start, taking 5-10 minutes at the end, and I'll go through each of them. That is what we did the other night. It worked out really well. But to answer Sweet PB's question of what 3 cases would I pick to know the truth about? Well, the Idaho 4 is a given. I almost don't want to include that in my 3 wishes because I feel like that's that's an obvious answer. But I will. Scott and Lacey Peterson, and then I was going to say JonBenet Ramsey, but I am very curious about the Stephen Avery murders being from the Midwest. And I'd really like to know the truth about why it is that the Manitowoc Police Department was really trying to set him back up. Why is he still in prison? Was there some real life conspiracy to, pay somebody else out to, plant evidence versus, taking a lawsuit that probably would have bankrupt the local Manitowoc Police Department? And Monty, that's so funny that you just said that. I appreciate the super chat. I have it written down. Here's my notes from last night. Oh, you guys aren't gonna be able to see that, but it says Jersey tomorrow, and I have Monty in parentheses. So I laid this out when I got done streaming, knowing that I was going to go away from the suit and the ties. Monty had requested it, or not requested, but rather said in a super chat that the suit's not the look for the Hive. But nonetheless, I saw a lot of people too guessing that I was a car salesman. And I guess without getting too specific, I'm not selling cars, but I am in medical device sales. So that is what I do in my day job. Yes. All right. If you guys have not hit that like button as you filed in, please go ahead and do so. Per usual, I will put this full screen. If you're new here, all you got to do is screenshot this, tap the QR code. That will take you to all the Hive's social links. It'll take you to the Discord. Make sure you have the app downloaded on your phone prior to trying to join it. And then also in the description of this live, I have all of the links too, if that's easier for you. I know sometimes those QR codes are finicky. And either way, I appreciate everybody that has joined the Discord or checked out HiveMindStore.com. Follow me on TikTok. That's great to see the Hive growing and reaching far and wide. So let's get into this, shall we? I kind of feel like booking with B over on TikTok. Let's get into it. But let's take a second here and let's get our mind right for this stream. Because as I've been saying the last few nights, there is a need for an additional disclaimer. We understand we're not, at least for me, I'm not interested in invading any victim's family's privacy. I don't really care unless it has something to do that could lead us in the direction that would show why this case has turned out to be the way that it is. Really, why I'm still looking at this case is because after years of what's a, rock solid narrative, a Loctite narrative, mainstream media running cover, 3-letter agencies not releasing information, the courts redacting documents, the defendant's not speaking, his family's not speaking, his lawyer's not speaking. When I see that, and yet over the last few years, the people that don't believe the official story is only continuing to grow, right? My interest is in why did they cover this up? How did they do this? And how can we prevent this from happening to people like you and me? You can learn a lot by looking into the way crimes are investigated. What are the laws? Why are they behaving the way that they are legally? It's interesting to me. It really is. And that's my motivation. It has nothing to do with, causing additional grief, pain, suffering, whatever other words you want to say. I almost just said buzzword because it almost feels like, in a way, anybody who thinks that it's that is probably the same type of person that believes the mainstream narrative around this. If you really think that we're interested in invading families' privacy, it almost seems like you haven't, really looked into this case at all. This case is about so much more than just wanting to talk about, victims and try to cause pain. So I'm going to go ahead and this is the Hive pet of the day. I saw this in the Discord and I got sent this by Discord Dawn. So thank you for pointing this out. This is Neo. Neo's a 4-year-old Lhasa Apso. Christ. I should have practiced saying that name. I probably butchered that. Whatever kind of breed of dog it is. And Neo's a conspiracy theorist too. So he loves watching Birdie. He stares at the screen fascinated. And his dream is for his photo to be used once in Birdie's opening on his live streams. So, Neo, your dream has come true. I don't know how you get on the internet. I know you ain't got no thumbs. And I don't even know if people get that joke. That's an inside joke with me and Mrs. Birdie about our dog saying like, I got no thumbs. Whatever. Kind of cringe. I just said that, I'm sure. But everybody does it behind closed doors with their significant other. You guys know what I'm talking about. Nonetheless, Neo, this is for you, buddy. Hopefully your owner has their TV up and their volume up on their TV. So that was for you, Neo. The first ever Hive pet of the day. And you can get the old top dog award before we switched to the top goat award. Oh man, what is my life? That's so awesome though. It's great. All right, Discord question of the day. This was great by Wonders Deep. Wonders Deep had left this comment saying, if it only involved the cartel, referring to the Idaho 4, why was there a cleanup? Seriously asking. And as I've been doing the last couple of streams, I kind of hold my answer and I kind of apply that question to the chat. So what do you guys think in response to Wonders Deep? Like if it really did only involve the cartel or any, kind of criminal network or gang, why would there be a cleanup? I think that's a good question. Right? I mean, why would they care to clean it up and try to hide it? Poetic Justice says easy operation failed with task force. Mitchell Callahan says there's different cartels. Tara Tate says possibly law enforcement protecting cartels. No shit, Sherlock said to covet their own. Why can I not pronounce these words? I feel like also the last couple of streams I've butchered some words, so now I'm a little bit in my head. Tangential crimes? Tangible crimes? Tangible crimes? It's got to be tangible. To preserve reputation is what Paisley's post says. Still here somehow 75 says because the cops are involved. And I got to text Mrs. Birdie quick to turn the heat off. I got a vent right above my head, and it's just blowing right down on me right now. Rochelle says they use the frats to funnel, so lots of dirty hands there. Lovely Me says it's a satanic group, in my opinion. Wanda Woman says, I think law enforcement was involved. UFO Dog brings up a valid point. The cartel wouldn't leave any witnesses. Marty Kuhn says that they needed to get rid of their DNA. To be honest, I would, out of all the answers as far as where this stream's going to go, I would say that one is probably closest to what my answer and the remainder of this stream is going to be about. Again, referring to the cleanup. So somebody had screenshotted this and put it in the Discord. I'll put this full screen. This was I believe this is a TikTok or it was a screenshot from a TikTok. But what I thought was interesting is that they had this cutout from a document talking about what do you do if you're in a frat or a sorority in the event of a death. And I typed it out because it was a little bit hard to read. So let me take that down and I'll read this out loud. So it says, in the event of a death, do not notify the parents. This will be done by emergency officials or university personnel. Chapters will take the following steps. Do not announce the death until you have coordinated a plan of action with your chapter advisor. And the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life be extremely careful. It is not announced until all members of the immediate family are notified. Plan of action needs to include this: meeting to inform chapter of loss, how it will be shared with the rest of the community following the chapter meeting, how resources will be provided to members in grieving, including but not limited to an on-call on-campus counselor and a 24-hour crisis hotline number. Okay. Let's talk about this, because while I understand Greek life and brotherhood or sisterhood, and I understand the university looking out for their own best interest, guys, we're talking about the death of a human being. What gives any Greek organization the authority to say, don't call the cops in the event of a death? And does the university stand behind that? I can't be the only one that thinks that that's a little bit crazy. Don't call the police. Call us. How did that become a thing? Even legally, that can be sent out to Greek life. Don't announce the death until you've coordinated a plan of action. What are we doing? Because how many kids don't call the cops and then debate with their friends? Do we call the police? They look like they're in trouble, dude. Do they need their stomach pumped? Oh my God, they're not waking up. They're not doing this. Whatever it is. And instead, they take that precious time where maybe an EMT could get there and save somebody's life And instead, they're calling a chapter advisor. What if the chapter advisor is asleep, on a date, hammered, whatever it is? Right? Doesn't that seem nuts? And be extremely careful. It is not announced until all members of the immediate family are notified. I hate that I continue to just use the G family. Really, I have nothing against them. I don't. I just feel like maybe they know more than they say they do, or they're a little bit salty that they got lied to by investigators or the state. That's not really the point of what I'm about to say, but they didn't sound like they were informed prior to the police, right? In the Chronicles of Olivia interview, Christy said that her niece called her and said there was a party and Kaylee got shot and somebody came and shot the party up. And then they waited forever for the cops to get there. Oh my God, dude. Like, it's hard to believe that we are in this stream right now in the position that we are with this case organically. It really is. It just seems like there's no way, if one of my buddies was dying, I truly feel like I would call the cops. I would call an ambulance. And there's no legal repercussions that the university is telling kids, don't call the police in the event of a death. So you guys get my point. That blew my mind. But this is very important for what I'm about to talk about. So everybody in the Idaho 4 case, experts included, Brian Koberger's attorney, has referenced this cleanup. Right? Well, do not announce the death until you have a coordinated plan of action with your chapter advisor and the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. See, now we have to pull that thread a little bit. Is that the reason for an 8-hour delay? And here is exactly what Turvey himself points out, and that's that there's a lack of bloody footwear patterns at the scene in general. Some of the precautionary acts in this case include the execution of living witnesses, the cleanup of bloody hands, feet, or footwear, and clothing before leaving. The disposal of said clothing, along with the weapons used. Direct evidence of this cleanup can be found in at least some of the dilute blood transfer, which was located in different areas of the home. Indirect evidence includes the absence of bloody transfer from feet and hands, despite the movement of suspects within the homes. The necessary... Whoa, dude. Hold on. Indirect evidence includes the absence of bloody transfer from feet and hands. Listen to this part. Despite the movement of suspects within the homes. Within the homes. That's a little bit weird. The necessary opening of doors, the absence of bloody footwear patterns at the scene in general. All of this would have required an extensive amount of time at the scene to clean. Perhaps hours, which is inconsistent with the state's theory that these crimes were committed within a time interval less than 15 to 20 minutes before or subsequent to 4 a.m. Why would homes be plural? I've never noticed that before. Have you guys? Let's see. Yep, Sammy Joe said more than one. Sarah said the white apartments had blood on the front, didn't it? And there was a party there. Yeah, you're right. It's interesting. Yeah, what would be the other home? I agree, Sarah. What would that be? The whites? Maybe. Tilted Halo says typo. Could be. It could be. And I don't disagree with that comment because they allowed Brian Koberger to cross out this guy's only about to sign paperwork to go away for 4 life sentences. And they wrote the wrong date and they allowed him to just take a pen, cross it out, and then sign it. Nobody had to notarize it or verify any of that correction. And how that gets messed up is beyond me in something that's so serious. Now, yesterday, I wore a suit and a beanie, and I channeled my inner Pavarotti. I talked about how Pav has really done a good job at documenting all of these photos and the cards versus the stickers. When were the photos taken? Whether it was right after the crime or 4 days later? Why does it look the way that it does? Etc. And Pav responded. I have a clip from his response video. Before I play it, I just want to say that this is what and how it should be between people that are looking into the same case, that have the same vested interest in truth and justice, transparency. We have to work together. And I want to highlight Pav and other, a handful of other creators that I'm sure come to you guys' minds as well. You have to work together. I don't know why in the Idaho 4 case, there's this I don't even know how to describe it. It's just different than, other cases in the past. And I think this was really cool. I think it was awesome that he took the time to do this and respond. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this clip. If I have a beanie and some shades on, understand that I am about to channel my inner J.M. Bree / Pavarotti, who I think has been a staple in investigating the Idaho 4 case.
And here's what I believe. I know people don't want to believe Dylan. I don't either. But I believe that Dylan knew what was going on. But she's still telling the story as close to the truth as she possibly can. She's just leaving out her culpability. Plain and simple. The forensic reports now show that a lot of the blood that you see throughout the house outside of the rooms were diluted with a liquid. I believe the person that was still in the house wiped up any blood that was on the floor that was later found with the Amido Black, and they had probably a pump sprayer, and they went around and they sprayed the blood on the walls, on the tables, just about everywhere they could see it real fast before they left, because the blood was all diluted with liquid according to the report, yet it wasn't wiped clean. This wasn't a fast cleanup. This was a quick wipe of the floor, and using some type of, probably a pump sprayer with water in it or some type of solution, they hurriedly sprayed the blood on the walls just to try to throw off investigators in the case, is my humble opinion. And they may have still even been in the house when Dylan ran down to Bethany's room, because I do know that at about 4:26, Dylan, where she's supposed to have run down to Bethany's room, I can hear somebody go out that front door of the house on the 1112 camera and open a door and get in a car. And that would be exactly the time that she's making calls through Snapchat. And then 3 minutes later, you see that black Ford Explorer come pulling into the neighborhood and pull into the driveway. And since we know only Ethan, his brother, and his sister had keys to that car, and Ethan's already unalived in that room, that means she called Ethan's brother. In my humble opinion, he drove over to that house. He went in and seen what happened, and he called the university first. They called the authorities, and then whatever story was made up from there to the 911 call was made up. That's what I got for you, brother, but I love your opinions on things, and hopefully that helps you to see mine.
No, it does. It does. And I wanted to make sure that I respond to that, and hence why I just showed what the process is when a death occurs in a frat or a sorority on campus. He nailed it. Now, the beauty of collaborating with somebody who clearly has the emotional maturity to have a debate and a discussion, yet understand that you're working towards the same goal, is that he didn't have to feel offended or defend his position. He just had to speak his truth. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what you do when you're really vested in the truth. Is I agree with you on that. I disagree with you on this, yada, yada, yada. It's not a hard concept. People have been doing it as long as time. Unfortunately, some people are just, I'll use the word soft instead of what I wanted to say in my quest to stop cussing. Some people are just soft. And, you know, I know people probably have their opinions on me. People have their opinions on Pav. At no point when I watched that response did I feel attacked. I felt like he listened, he responded, took the time out of his day when I'm sure he has other videos he could have made. And, you know, he gave a response, a good response that actually led to what I'm about to say next. Because Pav started talking about this diluted, or like we all know that the blood stains revealed that the blood was diluted, as I have in this document here. He was talking about a pump sprayer. Now, I can see this happening, right? Dylan had said it was like this weird vacuum thing. It could be a gun. Maybe it was a pump sprayer. Given now that we know that, Hunter most likely did show up in the black Ford Explorer, called maybe his frat advisor, came up with a plan, hence the delay. And really, after watching Pav's response, I really challenged myself to go back, and I looked at the crime scene photos with the Amino Black. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, so many people don't understand the Amino Black, myself included, where it's like, why does it look that way? Why does it look like they just poured Amino Black on everything? And in the hallway, you don't see anything. You got the defense's expert saying there's a cleanup. And then they show the Amino Black. It's like, what is all that, purple stuff? Is that all blood? How does that happen? Why did they only clean up this area and not the rooms? And then it started to click with me. And this is the beauty of theorizing and having debate with people. What clicked is this. If we go back to what this document says, which is don't announce the death until you have a coordinated plan of action with your chapter advisor and the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life, right? Don't announce it till all members of the family are notified. And then it's like, okay, well, why is the blood diluted in common areas on the stairs? How did they do that? It really makes the 8-hour delay make a little bit more sense. Because if they had to come up with a plan of action, I actually had put out a TikTok or a short earlier this afternoon, and I said, how did we get to the point where the official story is they were found in bed after being asleep and attacked in their sleep? When Dylan saw the killer and said she saw Kaylee go upstairs after playing with Murphy, listening to music, dancing, whatever she said they were doing, right? Yells, someone's in the house, ran down the stairs. How did that just get left out and it turned into they were asleep when they were killed? And then there's a cleanup on top of that. But there's a cleanup only in these main areas. I do wonder if part of the plan was we can't have it be obvious when you walk in the house. So let's clean it up just enough that we can say they were found in their rooms. Right? Let's clean up the areas that when somebody walks in, they would believe you that you didn't know anything happened until Hunter walked into Ethan and Xana's room. And Dylan, why don't you play dumb when Snyder tells you that, I believe it's Snyder, tells you that Kaylee and Maddie were up in the room and they're home. Even though you knew they were home. You just talked about Kaylee saying she was dancing. And I don't know why you're acting surprised. Like when he says they're gone, they are? It's weird. And it starts to form this picture of how the cleanup could have occurred. Now, when Pav started talking about this pump sprayer, I'm like, that is a really good point. As I had said earlier in the stream, continue to learn just about crime scenes, the legality of it. How are they investigated? What do the experts do to find the truth in mysterious cases like this? If there is a cleanup, if there is a cover up and it's not high profile, it is not uncommon to throw water or some sort of liquid to dilute bloodstains, because what it can do is it can change the appearance of what type of impact spatter occurred on the wall. And rather than give that detail, it just shows up as blood that was diluted. This has come up many times to the point where very rarely will investigators or prosecutors even try to explain how the blood was diluted. They don't ever say they threw buckets of water, they sprayed it, they wiped it. They don't really ever talk about that unless they can't, or unless they can visibly see it. They just use the language dilute. Now, I just saw a comment fly by. I missed it. The chat's going a little bit quick on my side. And somebody said, how would college kids know to dilute blood? Well, when you phrase it like that, respectfully, you got to remember, we're looking at a forensic investigator's report. The blood was diluted by another liquid when it was, uncovered. I would guess the college kids are just thinking, we got to wipe this up in the common areas. And I don't think that that's a stretch to think that somebody in college would think to cover it up, to cover their own ass, or if they did call somebody in the frat that is their counselor before they called the cops in the event of a death, that they would say, well, what's our story? Let's say they were attacked in their sleep. Let's get all this blood out here cleaned up. You just say you were asleep, you didn't hear anything, you didn't know, and then in the morning say that you woke up hungover, you were a little bit worried, Xana was drunk. You thought she was maybe unconscious. Maybe call one of your friends over to have them do it. That way it's not implicating you. That's not hard to come up with. And Mary Tyler says water would spread it further. Thank you for that. That's perfect timing. And look at what it looks like here. Look at how little these stains are. You'd really have to look closely, I believe, to understand that something may have happened. Right? It's a college house. Is that beer? Is that blood? Is that Coca-Cola? What is it? I don't think it's uncommon if, somebody throws a beer pong cup or drops a drink and something splatters on the wall, right? Now, I had read this before. Remember what we just talked about. This is how Amido Black should work. It enhances the print. But again, we all looked at it and we said, looks like they just poured Amino Black. Guys, the reason why the Amino Black looks like it was poured all over the place is because, again, going off of what J.M. Bree said with the pump sprayer, the pump sprayer doesn't matter. Again, the mechanism that they use to dilute it, nobody really would be able to prove that unless you can see it. But here's my point. If you spray water, just tap water onto blood, if you think about this, if I got a bloody nose right now and there was blood on my desk, and even if I just took this bubbler and I splashed it across the desk, and that liquid hit the blood, and now it's washing it away. Amido Black only picks up the proteins in the blood. So those proteins are being spread within that water or this bubbler that I just threw on it to move it. Because if there's no other liquid and it's just blood you're trying to enhance, it's a clean, crisp line to make it more visible. And then when you see shit like this, dude, they could have poured water down the handrail. They could have literally poured water down the handrail, and the blood on the handrail, right? Or they could have been running a wet towel. If you think about a bunched up towel that you would dry off with after a shower, let's say that you're wiping up the blood and you got it scrunched up and you're going to run it down the handrail. You're going to squeeze it against the handrail. It's going to be pressing against the wall, as you see in the top left photo. And then the excess water could be running off. Okay? And if there's any blood protein, that's the only thing that lights up. So what I'm trying to say is that they could have been dunking a bath towel or something that they were wiping this up with, hence why it's this smooth pattern here. It's consistent all the way down, almost like somebody bunched up a towel and drug it down to get any prints off, and they did it in the same mechanism up here. Right? It's almost like you can picture it. Like there's a bunched up towel, they're running along right here, and there's water that has a little bit of blood protein that's running down the side. And at the bottom, right here, all of the water with the blood is dripping off the handrail that they ran the towel off of. So they look, there's a purple shade to this entire thing. And the water's running down, and that is what is collecting down here, is bloodied water. You guys following me? Because in the kitchen, this is obviously laid out by the investigators, but you start to think to yourself, well, why would Amido Black pool up here? tell me now that I talked about this towel that might have a bunch of blood on it. Tell me that that doesn't look like the towel imprint that is soaking wet, that's by the sink after they cleaned up. And then the towels, water, it's the water mixed with blood, everybody. Whatever was set down and used to wipe this shit down had blood proteins in the water, and it essentially exasperated the blood proteins that amino black is used for. And I think that they probably set a bunch of towels up here. And I'm like always been wondering, how is there this smooth swipe of blood? Why is this so solid? But then, when you look very closely, here, how does it get these little specks? It picks up just that, but then here it's perfectly wiped. They're using a rag. They're using a rag and they didn't rinse it out good enough. They never knew that amino black was that sensitive and it picked it up. That's really what I believe could happen. And oops. When you think about how this, because here's what I want to ask people about. How in the hell would there be this much blood that's just atop a railing? How is there this much blood just on the handrails and right below the handrails? Unless it was wiped off with something that was already bloodied. And that runoff from whatever was damp or wet that they were wiping down flowed down and dripped right here. And, Third Apache, or I'm sorry, Troy says they weren't thorough, though, on the cleanup or just a really fast job. I agree. They weren't thorough. But my point in pointing out this theory, whether you think it was a pump spray, I'm saying it was a towel, whatever it may be, they could have even, what they could have done is even taken a bowl of tap water and splashed it down this handrail. It sounds nuts, but go look up amino black. And if there's blood that's being rinsed off with water and then is tested for amino black when dry, all of the water that collected blood protein will show up purple. Okay? And it was quick. But I believe that the only part that they were concerned about cleaning up was the public areas to enforce their narrative that they had no idea anything happened and that they were killed in their sleep. And if you're able to use any part of your brain, even if you're not a criminal, my thought is this. All of this amino black, dude, they're wiping down the handrails. Why? Why do you wipe down just the handrails? Because of your fingerprints. So somebody clearly had the common sense knowledge to say, take that towel that at one point was probably set here next to the sink and go wipe down the handrails. And that would make sense for doing it quickly. That would make sense for doing it sloppily. That would make sense on how the defense could have possibly known there was a cleanup. And that's why there are these little random drops on the wall. That they missed when they were wiping. These were seen prior to the amino black being applied. And these were the things that never got wiped off, that were visible to the naked eye and somebody with a camera. Then they apply the amino black and they probably thought to themselves, I would guess somebody that applied this amino black was like, holy shit, dude, they wiped the handrails and there was blood on whatever they used to wipe it down with. The reason why I bet they tested these areas too with the amino black and not the others is because there was visible blood in those areas. I believe that there was visible blood in those areas. Now, not everybody has to agree with this. That's the thing. The amount of comments that have flown by, I say this as nicely as I can. Probably similar to some of you listening to me that are like, yo, okay, whatever, Birdie. I've seen some comments and I'm like, I can't believe that it's rather just like, how are people not able to at least just hear this, take it in, think about it, and then make their judgment? Versus, I saw one that said, and this is no disrespect, but this is just one where I'm like, they use the handrails and they put the bodies on the handrails and they drug them up. That would take a very long time. And I'm trying to be nice when I say this, but it's like that amount of blood would not be able to be wiped up to the point prior to this where only these little smudges are visible. Then you apply the amino black. I really believe that the reason why this looks the way it does and why it's so smooth and purple and it's just dripping is because whatever they used to try to wipe prints off already had blood on it and it was soaked in water. They could have also used a pump spray and just sprayed it down, but I do wonder, especially because of this type of spot, it looks like something that's sopping wet was sitting here. Right? And again, amino black only turns the color of blood protein purple, everybody. It was confusing when you see this and it's like, why did they pour this all over the place? I don't think they poured it. I bet because amino black is applied with a spray. Go watch any amino black video, guys. Go watch any crime scene investigator apply amino black. There's tons of video on YouTube. It comes in a bottle that kind of looks almost like peroxide bottle. They pour it into a spray bottle and they spray it. They let it dry. And then there's like a second step process that they rinse everything else away with, and whatever is blood protein stays purple. So go make sure that you watch how it's applied. Understand that. Again, I'm not even necessarily trying to change your minds. I'm just telling you, this is where my brain went. And I hope that for 2 nights in a row now, where, last night I had told Pav to see this. He responded. Now I'm responding. I hope that this becomes this organic groundswell of everybody doing it this way. Whether it's something that somebody in our Discord says or you see from another creator, respond to it and build off of it. Don't just tear them down. There's little bits and pieces in everything that somebody could say. And for me, it was when Pav said, this expert talked about it being diluted, which is watered down. He thought pump sprayer. I'm thinking towel because of the countertop. And I'm thinking that this splatter here, guys, I'm really starting to believe that this splatter here, okay, see this at the top? To me, that looks like somebody is taking a sopping wet towel and they're putting it down quickly on the top of the rail to drag it down. And that's why there's this giant pool of water at the bottom, because it ran down the ledge. They walked up with a wet towel to clear the prints. And when they did that, again, the towel already had blood on it, or they were rinsing it out in dirty water. Maybe they had the sink filled up with the water, and then it splattered because it was a sopping wet towel. And that's why it ran down right here towards the top, because the water or the towel, if you look at this gap, if the towel's right here and it's bunched up and then somebody applied their pressure, where is the biggest leak? The biggest leak is where somebody's hands would be pressing on a towel, and that's why all the damn water filled with blood only goes into this spot. It's when you squeeze a towel and try to almost like wring it out for the first time. That's where the initial pressure happened, is right where this big, whatever this is, the strands of amino black. So again, agree with it, disagree with it, build off of it, tear it down, but do it in a way that gets us closer to the truth, please. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine. Like, just, can we not waste everybody's time with you just shitting on me? It's like, this guy's an idiot. He thinks it's this. He thinks it's that. How about you just say, oh, Bernie thought it was this. I think it's that. Can we get to that point? Because I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty sick and tired of, we're fighting ourselves in an already uphill battle. Okay. And, I even started to think, like, in the dishwasher, this is a stretch. I'll say this is a stretch, but I saw these bowls, right? I saw 3 of the same bowls that were in the dishwasher. If they ran the dishwasher, who knows if these were tested, right? But they did find blood on the cabinet drawer, on the cabinet doors. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, if you had, if you filled up this bowl of water and you got a hand cloth or you got something and you're walking around trying to wipe shit off quickly and it's got blood on it and then you're putting it back in, you're dunking it in the bloody water, that would make the amino black be that sensitive to all the blood protein, in my opinion. Now, again, everybody in here is entitled to their opinion. You can tell me that I'm wrong. I would not come on here and say that amino black is applied with a spray bottle and then a second chemical is used to remove it, just to have it be obvious that it's spread on with a brush or it's poured on, whatever it is. Okay. There could be multiple ways to do it. There could be different techniques. I'm telling you, you can go find people that are spraying amino black in a lot of crime scenes. So it is what it is. And clearly this was done quickly. And I believe that the motivation for the cleanup was not even to hide evidence. This is important. The motivation for the cleanup was not to hide evidence. I believe that these people probably knew that the evidence was going to be found. The motivation for the cleanup was to hide the fact that if you walked in as a stranger or a police officer, at first glance, for an unconscious person in the bedroom, you wouldn't expect anything. And then the shock of, oh my God, these people were killed in their rooms, takes over as the narrative. That's why I believe that it was cleaned up. I don't even think they tried to clean it up to get away with the DNA and all that BS. No, I think they just tried to clean it up enough so that a narrative could take over that it went down in the rooms and there was nothing in the common areas. There's this shock factor, this, oh my God, they were found in their rooms. Nobody knows when it was done. Brian Koberger snuck through the backsliding door. That's my opinion on it. So I'm going to go take a pee. I'm going to take a piss. And I know that, again, there's one lady in here that hates when I tell everybody this, but I can't just get up and walk away. So I will be back in like 20, 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to leave up these photos real quick. Tell me again what you guys think about, the spatter at the top. Did somebody take a wet cloth? And is this the spatter of the blood protein? And did they press down on it right here? Hence why that's where the majority of the immunoblack runoff is. Okay. Because other than that, can somebody explain how that happens? Right. So I'll be right back. And then I'm going to answer the questions. And I got one or two more slides. Okay. Now, so I'm back. As I walked away, I started to think, why do I feel so adamant about this? And I don't know how else to explain it other than I'm trusting my gut on this, that all of the amido black runoff is in areas that somebody's fingerprints could be. Like the overwhelming majority of it is where people's fingerprints could be, which leads me to believe that a wet rag, there could have even been a cleaning chemical mixed in with that, was used to wipe those areas down. Now, people are saying, well, the doorknobs. Okay. If nobody was asleep and they were awake and their doors were open, would any perpetrator have to touch a doorknob? No. And then I also want to talk about this picture specifically in the kitchen. We know that the sliding glass door was made a point as an area of exit. When you look closely, there's very defined splatter, and then it's wiped down. And I believe that, again, this is the runoff after somebody wiped it. That blood protein was in that the amino black picked up within that water or chemical running off. My question, when you look at this door now compared to the other areas, I'm going to zoom in for you guys. You see all this stuff here? Like, am I tripping, or do some of these kind of look like fingerprints? Like here, here, here. Right now, again, let's say if we were normies, and I know that we're not in here, you would say, well, Birdie, they would have tested that. Yeah, because we know they've tested all of the DNA that they've found in this house, right? That's just my opinion. This just looks different, like a quick wipe down. But I am curious, like what causes this? What causes this spatter here compared to just a smooth wipe? This is interesting. Whoops. Like, what would cause this? This looks like a direct impact. Yeah, you're right. If you look at the height of it, you look at the height of that, that could be, we know it's not Ethan's head. I don't know. It could be, it also could be it could be a sponge. It could be a sponge. Who just said that? Wonders Deep. Oh, you had the question of the day, dude. Yeah, it could be a sponge. So again, this all stemmed from a combination of Wonders Deep asking this question of, if it's only involving the cartel, why was there a cleanup? And then, you know, given my theory, Pav, I think it's awesome that Pav like theorized and gave his thoughts in response to it, as I said. Right? The cleanup, if it was only the cartel involved, the cleanup was motivated for the future narrative they were going to sell. Because if there was blood or bloody handprints or DNA found on the stairwell, and a cop could have seen that when they arrived at an unconscious person 911 call 8 hours later, their story would be destroyed. The motivation for the cleanup was for them being killed in their sleep. Does that resonate with anybody? I don't believe that the cleanup was even motivated by hiding DNA or trying to not get caught. I think that the initial purpose of the cleanup was to hide the fact that this was not in their sleep. And if there's another reason for a cleanup, because clearly they didn't care about the rooms, guys. They didn't care about the rooms. Anybody seen Amito Black in the rooms? Maybe they haven't released it. I don't really think you would need Amito Black in the room. But they did it on the stairwell, and they did it specifically on areas that fingerprints would be left with. And I don't think it would take as long as people think to, guys, I mean, clearly, right? We just have little bits and pieces down here, little, you know, blood spatters to the naked eye across all of the stairwells. in my opinion, see, I don't even know how that's a lot of blood protein. Give me a second. God, dude, this case has made me go to these, mental places of like how a criminal could think. This is not instruction, but I'm just thinking like, what if when all right, this is speculation, but I'm just saying like all of this Amito Black, and there's only a couple different little points that they point out. Right? Obviously, I'm not, this Amito Black expert, but what did they see in these points to look at that? Why not test all of this other blood? Maybe they did potentially. But now I'm thinking, what if they used, this is so dark, but we have to have candid conversations. What if the people that were doing the cleanup used a bloody item, whether it be a shirt, a blanket, a towel? We know that blood's everywhere in the room. What if they grabbed that and, I don't know, ran that under tap water, put it in a quick bucket of water, and then just swiped it with that so that all that other Amito Black is the victim's blood? I don't know. But something tells me that this isn't a first-time criminal doing this. That's not a part of an organization that has done hits. Yeah. Wow, Rochelle, what if it was the jacket? Mixes up all of the DNA, diluted with water. You can't test it. Somebody said Ethan's clothes. I don't know. But again, I feel like I've put out enough stuff on this case where in my head, I know when I'm like, okay, speculation. Obviously, this is all speculation. None of this is fact. But when I think through wiping something up with a towel, watching a bunch of videos on Amito Black, the various types of application that it has, it's only in areas where fingerprints would be. We now know that in the event of a death in a frat or sorority, don't call the cops. Come up with a plan. There's an 8-hour delay. There's evidence of a cleanup by the defense experts. It's only in the common areas. They don't care to clean up the rooms. The defense expert also says, oh, the bodies were posed. Well, shit. Quarter in the swear jar. But the defense expert said Kaylee was posed in the same bed as Maddie. So let's clean up the common areas so that when we call the cops 8 hours later, when they look at all the security footage, which we know they will in their investigation, let's clean up these areas so that when we called for an unconscious person, it's not obvious that there's blood everywhere and all the blood's just contained to the rooms. And before anybody talks an ounce of shit that had nothing to do with any of the victims. That had everything to do with a cover-up, with it being mind-blowing to me that universities allow Greek life to say, don't call the police when somebody dies, call us. That's effed up. And two, I'm not even trying to talk about anything other than how it was cleaned up. I'm getting out in front of that. And you should want to know too. Everybody should want to know too. This is insane. I don't think it's that far of a stretch that if there's a cleanup, somebody took a towel, dunked it in water, wiped it up, maybe redunked it in water. There was already blood on it. Amino Black picks up blood protein. They wiped everything where there could have been fingerprints. Birdie's such a conspiracy theorist. No. If that makes me a conspiracy theorist, respectfully, you would be the easiest criminal to catch. You'd be the easiest criminal to catch, and you would be the worst investigator of all time. If that is a conspiracy. So I don't know if I'm right, but I'm just saying I'm looking at pictures like everybody else. We're not all privy to the, the inside baseball information. We don't know. All right, moving on. Let me get to some of these. I'm going to go through all the super chats now. That was fun the other night when I could really, just kind of take the time and go through these. So Pinchalicious says, I knew I liked you. I'm in quality for medical devices too. Olipop hater / fellow cheesehead. Don't forget it. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm sorry again about the Olipop and how the nickname Pinchalicious came to be. I hope you're doing all right. Giovis says, new here. I enjoy the content. Can I please get a 2-minute recap? Last I saw, audio with screams trying to hide other screams were released. What's your take? So let me say this, Giovis. I do a live stream for about an hour and a half to 2 hours each evening. And then within the next 24 to 48 hours, I will post a 20 to 45 minute clip that's like a quick cut of the live for exactly that reason. So if you can't hang out for 2 hours, go check out the videos that I post, a day or two later. That will bring you up to speed on everything that I said, showing, the main points that people need to know if they do catch a live the next time. And welcome to the Hive. I appreciate everybody that's new. Natasha Hill, thank you for the super sticker. Moto Man says, Birdie, if there's anything that makes sense in this case, it's definitely that nothing at all makes sense. If this is how Idaho operates, then I guess so be it. Marty Kuhn, thank you for the $5 super chat. Patty Cake says, makes sense. I find it funny that Ethan's brother told his mom, Ethan is not here. And she was like, okay, forget him. If a loved one had passed, I would have been screaming. I think he knew hours before. Where my brain goes on that is similar to how, like, Brian is not defending himself. So I'm not trying to sit here and defend Brian. You can't defend a man that doesn't want to defend himself, or his attorney's not speaking out, asking for public help. But what we can do is talk about the cover up. And the reason why I bring that up, Patty Cake, is the events of exactly how and when something happened. I don't know if we're ever going to get past just like theorizing. Unless somebody really blows the whistle outside of what DM said, I don't know if there's any, or with photos, whatever it is. I mean, we got a lot, and it's all still kind of guessing. We don't really know. So the focus should be on bringing attention to the cover up and finding the truth, so that eventually one day we do know, Ethan's brother did show up after Dylan called him, yada, 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 so on and so forth, as people have speculated, right? Monty said, "Hello, Hive. I'm your newest member that believes in the newest free thinking and extremely happy to be among you. I hope on the next call in live, I get through, my brother." Absolutely. Yeah, I do those. I'm going to do the call in probably Friday this week. I got 2 guests or 3 guests coming up the next 3 days. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. M.S says the bucket in the closet was used then. I'm assuming, obviously you're referring to like dunking with the water and the towel, just like I kind of pointed out the dishwasher. I don't know if they use that. It is interesting, though, that we saw people going to look in all the dumpsters, almost like, hey, we were told to call you before we called the cops. What's our plan? Here's what we did. We cleaned up all the blood in the common areas. We moved them back into their beds so people didn't know that there was a giant struggle. And we discarded the things that we used to clean them up. Did people go and check the dumpsters to make sure that they weren't dumb enough to discard it that close to the house? I don't know. Michelle says the internet is both glow thousand horrific, glow Rios and horrific, and all at the same time. Sorry, I don't understand that other word. But yeah, there are some glowies in here at time to time. Mainly. Not too many NPCs, though, by any means. Tranquility Base Production says towels were from the first floor bathroom. That was stripped of all normal bathroom stuff. That's true. It was. And there's really no blood outside of a couple specks in the bathroom. That was another thing that Pavarotti pointed out. 5 Divine 533 says, remember the body cam footage? Didn't Dylan say that they did a deep clean? Yeah, it was like the week or two before Parents Weekend. Now, that always makes me question, why point that out? Is that just some stupid, like, planting of a narrative? We didn't find anything. Well, that's because they cleaned before Parents Weekend. So that's a good call out. I agree. Kawanda says, makes sense, Birdie. The real ones get you. Goated. Thank you, Kawanda. I appreciate that. Jody BZ says, did you see the photos with the dog prints? They said Murphy didn't have blood on him, but there are paw prints in one of the rooms. Maddie's room, I think. Source, Amber Vance, TikTok. I have seen that. I do have a screenshot of it. I didn't pull that up tonight just because I wanted to focus on the Amino Black and the cleanup. But yes, that will be in, the next stream or two. Tinfoil Hat Claire says, remember, SG, I think, said in an interview, the person was, what is that? Not very smart or something like that. I do remember an interview where, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody to hear that. You can go look up clips of Steve G talking about Brian Koberger in a way that he's not smart, or that, family saying he's not smart. But I think the best way to answer this would be Steve G has definitely talked through the screen to people that feels cryptic in a handful of interviews. Tara says, is that light bulb a colored light, or did that bulb possibly blow, which could have also made a flash and a pop noise? Interesting. The whole Sensi thing compared to the gunshot. I mean, if we got gun rack guy, we hear all these booms, different cameras. I mean, I don't think anybody would believe that a Sensi would make a noise when you see somebody walking in the parking lot, racking a gun, and then just, a couple minutes later, you hear what sounds to be a gunshot. I don't think anybody's thinking that that's a candles or like a wax Sensi exploding or a light bulb. But I do want to point out that that is a light bulb. It's not a camera. I think that even the cops were like, is that a camera? It's just a weird looking, what do you want to say? Like a weird looking device that holds a fixture, that holds a light bulb, that does kind of look like a security camera. Reasonable Doubter 22 says, makes you wonder where all the cleanup stuff went. Facts. Dumpster by the house was overflowing, yet the bottom of King Dumpster was empty. I agree with that. That is weird. I still go back to how there's been this bias of Brian Koberger being this, genius criminology student, yet he makes every simple, stupid mistake. I don't know of anybody that would, well, maybe not. I don't know. I just find it hard to believe that you do all these other things and you get to the point where we are today just to have thrown bloody items from a murder that could have your DNA on it, 50 yards away in, one of the dumpsters. But I agree. One of them was overflowing. One of them was empty. Blue Eyed Candy, thank you for the super chat. If it got out that this was retaliation against confidential informants, think about how that would change future CI recruitment for Elite. Pod made such a great point, revealing which parents will gain from the lawsuit and the ones that won't. You know what? I forgot to bring this part up. I'm going to have to probably talk about this in the next stream. That is interesting. They don't just let anybody be a confidential informant. You don't just get to apply for it. They kind of ask you, or you're doing it to get rid of a charge, as Pop said. And then you look at the lawsuit and there's certain people's names not on it, being Xana's mother and Maddie's father. That's weird. And you're right. If this was retaliation on the children of confidential informants that took down a giant white supremacist gang or a cartel, yeah, you're probably not going to want to let that out publicly at all. Chevy Metal, replace Dylan's fireman she saw with someone with a backpack sprayer, and now it makes sense in her ramblings. Not that I believe she didn't know. The handheld vacuum. You're right. There's all of these things, dude, that when you think about the cleanup aspect, hang on, let's think about this. How long was it? Do we know the answer of this? Or the answer to this? How long was it that? So Dylan hears what, Kaylee yelled and ran down the stairs. And then she talks about opening the doors. Do we have a timeline as far as how long was that from when she heard Kaylee yelled at to when she apparently saw the guy? Because what if she would have seen a dude that came in after the fact with a black face mask on, dressed in black, covered in gloves, and yeah, it was like a mini vacuum thing. He's spraying shit down. She said 10 to 20 minutes later. When did she say that? If she did, I don't. Right, because she ran downstairs. So I thought she said she saw the guy, close the door, went back to bed, but then she's saying she ran downstairs to Bethany's room. So like, when did this happen? Right. So she saw the guy the third time she opened the door before she ran down the stairs. But what I'm saying is, how long did that take from when Kaylee yelled to when that happened? That's a good question. What? I'm not, obviously this is going to come off like, when did she say that? Can you guys put that in the Discord? When did she say 5 to 10 minutes later she saw, or I guess, again, these interviews are hours long. There could be a part, but it wasn't very mainstream as far as like, it was just, she saw the masked man, bushy eyebrows. And then Beth said, yeah, but then again, she thought it was a dream. All right. So real quick to finish this live, what I want to do, I want to take a poll. We got, 1,500 people in here, guys. Please hit that like button. I'm not begging for it, but that literally is the only thing that I ask. Hit the like button. It's free. All my streams are free. I don't keep anything behind a paywall. Hit subscribe. And my question that I have for you all is, type of 1, if you think that the cleanup was done not necessarily to clean up DNA, but rather to solidify the narrative that they were unalived in their sleep. Type of 2, if you think it was done to hide the DNA, because it certainly seems like, knowing about the frats, what they're supposed to do in the event of a death, no matter, if we agree or disagree on how it was cleaned up, but it just seems like it was like, we can't have anybody walk in here and see blood until they get into the rooms. Got a lot of 1s, 1 and 2s, a couple 2s. Okay. It's just, again, it's a temperature check. But I hope you guys enjoyed that stream. I got one last super chat here, or 2 last super chats. Divine533 says, is BK the cleanup guy for the cartel? I don't know. I don't think Brian Koberger's got a lick of anything to do with it. However, I will also be transparent. That's my opinion, given the fact that he's writing papers exactly about what is happening to him, about being overcharged, forced to do a plea deal at a school that's receiving funding for predicting lone wolf violent behavior. So I don't know. Sometimes I think in that aspect, I've gone so deep down the rabbit hole. It's hard for me to see anything else. But there are a lot of people that think, BK was a cleanup guy. I don't share that opinion. But it's a good question. EK says, can you find an example of amino black being used? Yes, you can find thousands. You just got to go onto YouTube and type in amino black being used, and you can see before and after pictures. You can have people explain it. There are a ton of those. And anyways, Hive, like I said, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I will be back on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central. Cheers.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.